Ryan yet. Oh,
Thank you.
Got it.
now we have to be serious, folks.
As we say in the 70s, who's recording?
Okay. Jonah? You're getting back on, I guess. That recording thing bothered.
Mary?
Hey, Martin, yay.
Yay.
Hi.
Recording thing.
Everybody say hi to everybody, okay?
Hello.
Hi,
Yay.
everybody.
Hello.
Okay. And honestly, Mike August, yay. Okay, and some of you are on mute, and that's fine. Cindy Sue, yay.
Hey, Carlos,
Sydney.
you're not gonna get rid of this thing?
Hi, Cindy.
Hi, Sydney.
Hey, Cindy.
Hi.
Hi, Cindy.
Hello. Kept touching my finger.
It's not an iPad.
Oh,
It's
okay.
like-
How can I make this big? Yay, can see everybody.
Okay. Hey,
Hi.
hey, can you text Thorn and Cam?
Oh, yeah, let me find where I put my phone. Okay.
Call Thorn.
Okay, Carlos will call Thorn and Cam. See, we just tried to do a little practice thing, and I think that wore us.
Very smooth.
Huh?
It worked very smoothly, better than most of the Zooms that I've been in on.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Wait, who said that? Can you say it again? You're being recorded.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, wow. I don't know who knows Allison Nash, but she just got on.
Okay. Hi,
Oh,
Allison.
Allison, hi.
Hello.
Allison, the midwife, among other things. And I've got two designated. Tracy, where are you? In Sherwood as co-hosts. Okay. Still don't have Cam back. Still don't have Thorn here.
There's Judy and Kelly, though.
Yeah, we're here. And we came from
They're
really
here.
far away.
Where's Thorn?
Okay, Ryan. Who knows Ryan? Otherwise known as RB. Ryan? Are
There he
you
is.
on? Are you gonna let us see your face? Maybe. Ryan, are you RB? Yeah,
Yes, that's me.
I know. I think you're the one who's,
Oh,
Deborah,
Deborah's here.
yay. And
Hello,
Don,
Deborah.
Hello, Deborah.
and Ryan really helped us get the cactus music. And somebody's dog is barking.
Did we get cactus?
Yes, we got.
Yay.
I put that on remembering Space City because it was breaking news.
Thorn is showing up.
Okay. Roger Baker. And we are recording, but we'll probably cut this part out as everybody comes in. And so I've got help getting people in.
How do you do?
As soon as we get Cam, I think we'll.
It'll be official then.
Sorry, I was late. My computer froze.
I just want to have all the editors here,
Hi, Thorn.
the editors and.
Who said hi, Thorn?
I did. Hugh Grady.
I did.
Oh, hi. Hiya.
So I guess the co-hosts are letting people in because I don't even get to see waiting anymore. Y'all are doing a good
I'm
job.
letting people in
There's Cam.
Awesome, Cam. Okay,
You
folks.
got Cam? Oh, good. Yay.
Cam. So,
Since you're all having to wait so
Yay.
long for the meeting to start, I'm gonna buy free drinks for everyone.
yay.
Do you ship internationally?
Yes,
We've got a transporter.
You wouldn't believe how much it is to ship internationally. Actually, getting the book to you
Oh,
is like, I was shocked because Space City, I think, prints in Canada. I mean, that book got printed in Canada and just went to you normally instead of like going to the US post office. Yeah.
So is somebody still letting these other folks in?
Yeah,
I
we've
am.
got Sherwood and Tracy both letting people in. Is that correct?
No new people have come in. That's why I was wondering.
And Janice is saying she needs the passcode. So
I
somebody,
just sent it in, put it in the
All right.
chat.
okay. So now, do y'all want to start? Since it's 7:05.
Sure.
Can we take a vote so we have a consensus moment?
I think we gotta start 7:09.
That's right.
That close.
That is the typical uranium savage. So, yes, I'm sure that would be appropriate.
It's 7:06 now.
So Carrie, you tell me when we
Okay.
can start, okay?
No, just start whenever you want.
Oh, okay.
You start, you're the host.
Okay. So everybody, welcome to the book lunch for Exploring Space City, Houston's historic underground newspaper. We're recording, which I think you all know, and until we get to question and answers, and then we'll probably turn off recording. And you can use chat if you want to put questions in. Tracy Schultz, RAG radio engineer, is co-hosting, and so is Sherwood Bishop. And we really hope to
What is
see.
passcode for the meeting? And somebody
Huh?
said,
What? Okay, we really hope to see you in person soon. So we have 2 upcoming events where that may be able to happen in Austin, 1 to 3 tomorrow, December 8th at Batch Craft Beer and Kolaches, 3220 Manor Road, and it's going to be outdoors, and we'll have books, and we want to see you if you're in Austin. Then in Houston, the Houston launch event, 3 to 6, Saturday, December 11th at Johnny McElroy's Irish Pub and Patio. That's 1223 Waugh Avenue.
Well,
And-
drive.
I'm sorry, Waugh Drive, yeah. In Houston's Montrose. And so 3 of the book editors will be there and lots of people who worked on the paper. So please try to make it by. You can read a lot more about the book events. If you go to the ragblog.com and go up on that menu bar at the top, Space City, we're trying to keep everything up to date. And we've got a link to the Houston Chronicle article. Yay, thank you, Thorne. And we have a link to the Houston Press. Yay, Houston Press. And there's a link to our indie publishing site on Lulu to buy the book. And there is there's something about KPFT. Now that's happening Friday. Is that correct? A show Friday. So there's information on that. And there's on where you can buy the book in Austin. Book People, Book Woman, and then yay to everyone who made this happen. Cactus Music, 2110 Portsmouth. I guess I'm saying that correctly. I'm not a Houston person.
Portsmouth.
So let me first introduce what we're going to do is just I'm going to introduce the editors and Carrie and John Lomax, and then we're just going to kind of go through a few questions about the paper. So I am Alice Embry, and I'm a founder of the RAG and editor of Celebrating the RAG, Austin's iconic underground newspaper that we published in 2016. And my memoir, thank you to the Briscoe Center.
Yay.
My memoir came out in 2021. They published it. And I'm on the board of New Journalism, the publisher of the Space City book, along with Sherwood Bishop, our president, Thorne Dreyer, and Cindy Sue. Thorne Dreyer is a founding member of the Space City Collective. He was also a founder of the RAG in Austin and is an editor as well of Celebrating the RAG. And he is editor of the RAG blog and host of RAG Radio. And his book, Making Waves, there's a theme here. Making Waves, the RAG Radio interviews will be published next year by the Briscoe Center for American History. So yay. And then labor activist, where are you, Cam? Was a founding member of the Space City Collective, and he taught labor economics in Puerto Rico and at American University in DC. And he has worked for a long time as a labor educator. Sherwood Bishop, who recently retired from teaching economics at Texas State, is president of the New Journalism Project, and he co-founded the San Marcos Greenbelt Alliance and also worked at Space City, joining the staff very shortly after the beginning of the paper. Carrie On, formerly Carrie Fitzgerald, whose artwork adorned the first issue.
Still Carrie Fitzgerald.
What?
Fitzgerald.
I'm still Carrie Fitzgerald.
Yeah, no, formally.
Carry on is my pen name.
Oh, okay. And he enlivens this broadcast as well as the paper all the way to the last issue. Carrie moved to Austin and was part of the art, theater, stand-up comedy, music scene here, and longtime cast member of Esther's Follies, a founding and current member of the Uranium Savages, former funniest person in Austin.
That's funny. But no longer.
Formerly of Austin.
Don't get upset, Carrie. Are you trying to get me to? I said I was gonna do this so you wouldn't have to. Okay. He's now living in Alpine, Texas, where he's pretty much doing the same thing. Drawing, painting, breathing, acting up. And then John Lomax, grandson and nephew, respectively, of pioneering folklorists, authors John Avery and Alan Lomax, carries on the family music tradition that began in 1885. He was he worked as music editor at Space City and relocated to Nashville and continues work as a music journalist, artist manager, and a music distributor. And the reason I did all that is so that you don't have to do all that. So be grateful. Okay. Without further ado, I'm going to start off these questions. And the first one is, how did you get involved with Space City? And Carrie, can you maybe tell the story that you told Michelle? If you can remember, I know it was a long time ago, like 10 minutes.
Well, no, I remember my brother, Dennis Fitzgerald, is the one that brought me into Space City. Who also brought me into the RAG. So thank Dennis, he really introduced me to all these people and brought me into it. And I was just a teenager. I still am, but that particular time, I was like, in high school, I drew my first cover for the RAG when I was like 15 or 16. And somebody bought it for $10. And I thought, I can make money doing this art stuff. And it really didn't turn out that way, but still, I'm alive. That means something, right? So Dennis Fitzgerald, who my brother, the late Dennis Fitzgerald, got me into the RAG. And I knew Thorne through Dennis, from high school and stuff. And I knew Thorne, and I knew kind of a lot of those people. So I was naturally fell into it. And I'm glad I did, because now 50 years later, we're doing something. No, it was good. It was a good time. There's Thorne right there. Thorne, Thorne, and I worked for his mother, Dreyer Gallery, so we were all connected somehow back in those days. Does that answer the question?
I know it did. And Thorne, or anybody else want to take it away in terms of how the paper started? Thorne?
I will. How the paper started.
Okay, how'd you get involved with Space City?
Well, I was first involved with the RAG. We started the RAG in 1966, and it was sort of an earthquake. I mean, it was an incredible experience, and I think it transformed me. And I then worked in New York and then came back, and I ran into a group of people. Two of them were Dennis and Judy Fitzgerald, who I had gone to high school with, and two were Cam and Sue Duncan, who we all ran into, and Victoria Smith, and we all ran into each other at a conference at the Great Speckled Bird in Atlanta, and we sat for hours in this diner and talking about the idea. This is after Dennis had written me and said, no, I won't go back to Houston. And so we all sat there and we all just went, we just decided, we convinced ourselves over and over that it was absolutely the thing to do. And Houston needed a paper, and we thought we knew how to do it. Houston was a very different kind of place from Austin, and it was a big spread out city, had little pockets of opposition in it and pockets of counterculture, but it needed to all be pulled together. And there was a very lively a rainbow coalition. There was a lot of activity in Houston, and I think we did a really good job of sort of turning it, of making it into a bit of a political force. I don't know if that answers the question, of course.
Certainly answers part of it. Who wants to take up on that? Sherwood, Cam?
So I grew up in San Antonio, was active in the anti-war movement in college in the 60s, became a conscientious objector to military service, and did 2 years of alternative service as a VISTA volunteer and as a community organizer in Houston's 6th Ward, beginning in 68. The Vistas helped organize a neighborhood food co-op, opened a draft counseling center, and worked with Houston Welfare Rights Organization as mothers fought against cuts in welfare payments to families with dependent children. And I see Sue and Hugh here with us tonight, who were also Vista volunteers, organizers in Houston at that time, and also helped us produce this book in the last few months. Really want to thank you for doing that.
It was a pleasure.
There was a growing number of radical community and student movements organizing in opposition to the police repression and violence in Houston, racial segregation in the schools, unions organizing in the petrochemical plants, and especially increasing opposition to the Vietnam War. And in many ways, I think Space City was similar to the pattern of underground papers forming in other cities at the start of movement activity in those places. Anyway, a few of us began talking about the need for a media voice that could serve these activists, could be a meeting place to help develop an alternative cultural and political movement. Sue Duncan and I, as Thorne mentioned, went to the conference on the Radical Press in Atlanta, and we met Thorne and Victoria and Judy and Dennis, and over coffee we agreed to start the paper. And the first issue was published about 6 months later, after we raised a few $100 to pay the first printing bill. The paper was printed for its entire 3-year run, correct me if that's not right, by Forward Times, Houston's Black-owned weekly newspaper. And I think we were lucky, fortunate, that to have them do that, because they were resistant to any political pressure to stop printing the paper. And anyway, we all hawked the first issue all along Montrose Boulevard, in Herman Park, and at rock concerts. And the 6 of us and a couple of others lived in a commune on La Branch Street. So that's how it first got started.
And Sherwood, I think you have one of the better stories about showing up at the office.
Yes, I was living in Pasadena at the time, working at an oil refinery. I was a union steward at the refinery, and a student at San Jacinto Junior College, which had just opened up. It was that the junior college was located on Spencer Highway, and a lot of us called it Spencer High because it was such a terrible excuse for a college. But through my union activities as a steward, and I had gotten involved in sort of freelance kind of social work, and there wasn't much or many people in Pasadena to demonstrate or anything, but I had gotten involved in demonstrating in Houston, working to try to integrate the Houston School District, trying to get the free lunch program reinstated and things of that nature. As a part of that, I got to be friends with a pharmacy student at Texas Southern University who had been sort of belonged to an African separatist group, and then he decided he wasn't going to be able to change the world much that way. So he decided he was going to try to work with white people, and that was Mickey Leland. So he and I became good friends. And one day at school in Pasadena, a friend of mine there brought me the first copy of Space City News and said, look at this, these people are writing about what things that we've been talking about. And so I read it and was really enthralled. And so Mickey Leland and I went and visited the Space City office. I was wearing my coveralls and steel-toed boots, and Mickey was dressed in his usual sort of spiffy clothing. Looking back on it, considering that I told him I was from Pasadena and how I was dressed, and Pasadena was sort of the heartland of the Ku Klux Klan at the time, I'm surprised they didn't shut the door in our face, but they didn't. They were very welcoming and kept their suspicions to themselves, I guess. And I fell in love with a whole bunch of them, and eventually joined the collective, moved from Pasadena and lived in the Space City office. And the whole thing changed my life entirely. So I'm very thankful to that.
So let's, well, okay, I'll just say a few words. I was not in Houston, and so my association with the paper was that I contributed a few things, did paste up and layout a few times, but I knew people, and that I'm the only one of the editors that kind of approached this, I don't know, as an anthropological project, looking like what was Houston like, and it was really fascinating. So, but I don't have a story about landing in the doorway of Space City other than to come in and help with layout a couple of times. But I did know, I knew Thorne from the RAG, I knew Judy from the RAG, I knew Dennis, and I guess that was it. I didn't, you know, anyway, I'm going to ask another question here. And John Lomax, I don't want to put you on the spot, but one of the things that I think we did pretty well was cover a lot of subjects in the book. And we tried to show the diversity of the coverage of the newspaper. So do you want to say a few words about the music coverage that you contributed?
Well, I kind of just started out reviewing records, and like a good politician, kept grabbing more territory and pronounced myself the music editor one day. Nobody said anything. So then I started writing features and doing concerts and stuff. But it was basically because of frustration. I'm a newspaper junkie, and I grew up in Houston, and when we had 3 dailies, and I read them all. And then I still read every daily here in Nashville, of which there's one, which is pretty pitiful. It at any rate, they weren't covering what I was hearing on the radio. For instance, FM radio was taken off and really redoing the landscape for audio listeners, for people that like popular music. So, but we weren't hearing about any of this in the dailies. They'd cover a concert now and then at the Music Hall or the Coliseum, and that was it. No record reviews, no advance notice features of concerts, nothing. It would all be like after the fact, if at all. So I just jumped in and started writing about what I heard and liked and hustling records from the various music companies so that I would have product, because I couldn't afford to buy it. It was, you know, it was a free gig. It was what you could hustle in terms of vinyl and t-shirts, concert tickets, and stuff like that. So I found out really quickly the music representatives of the major labels that were based in Houston were happy to see me coming, because they would have closets full of records, and then the next week here came another batch, and they didn't have that many places to put them. So I would come haul them off. I still have some actually from them. But it was great for me because it started me out. I had written a few things in Austin for the daily paper there and had an article in Cream magazine, but I had no credentials at all. And despite all this, Thorne and them just said, okay, go for it. And so I did, and it started into, it got my writing chops going, and that led to a lot of things in Nashville and a whole career in various parts of the music business that is enduring to this day, despite streaming. It hasn't eaten all of the recorded music business, but it's doing a very good job of it. So I shifted from being an exporter to selling a lot of things on Amazon that I can find that people want to buy. There's still a lot of people wanting CDs. And vinyl is too expensive to mail. So there you have it.
Well, thanks. So Carrie, I mean, there were a lot of artists. You want to say anything about what the artists were like on the papers? I mean, you were always there, I think.
Well, I was there just because I lived like a block away, and no, it was very easy. Actually, I met Danny Garrett and Bill Narum through there. And Danny Garrett and Bill Narum both became Austin poster artists. And Bill Narum was like a real artist. No, Narum,
as opposed to you,
the guy that we all kind of looked up to. And then they ended up in Austin, and we became friends. And we're still friends. You know, Danny Garrett, I'm one of my best friends. And Bill Narum, and I met Tommy Bauman through there, and I met a lot of artists came through there. And Thorne, basically, I was pretty much just like let loose. I kind of had my own little deal, my own drawing table, and so they would give me like $5 or $10 to draw an ad for somebody, and that's how I made my living. I would make, you know, $20, $30 maybe a week drawing ads. And then I would go sell the newspapers when they would come out on whatever day they came out on Thursday, then on Montrose, and, you know, make, you know, $10 or $20, you know, $50 a week is really, you could live on that pretty much.
Back then.
So it all worked out very well for me personally. It kind of set me on my way by drawing, you know, and that's kind of what I still do. So really, Thorne, I want to thank everybody from Space City for kind of putting me on the path to what I really became. And it was just weird because I would draw something and it was being printed, and then suddenly it was like everybody saw it, you know. So I kind of became a little famous, but I had to, not famous per se, but just my name got out there. But then I got harassed by so many, the Klan and all that stuff, and the cops, and everything was, I found out I had to move to Austin.
Tell us about the time the Klan almost hit you when you were working
Right, they,
And you hit the floor.
drawing, it was in that Chronicle article. I was actually drawing one night late on the second story, right in front of the window, and there was shots rang out, and I hit the floor. And then I didn't actually go back calmly to the drawing. I actually went
But that made the
downstairs.
better story.
It was a better story, but it wasn't the truth. I went downstairs and went out on the street to see what was happening, and Sherwood Bishop was living there, and he actually ran out in his underwear. And I saw Sherwood Bishop in his tidy whities. That was, oh, I can't get that out of my head still after all these years. There was Sherwood in his underwear.
Sorry about that, Terry.
And we're just like, what happened? You know, so then the firebomb, they firebombed that car because I lived right there. And it was just too much. And the police were like hassling us all the time, you know. And finally I got pulled over by a helicopter, a police helicopter. They would come every night and like shine their lights. And finally I got pulled over by a police helicopter. I said, I have to go to Austin. This is too much harassment. The Klan, the police, they're all in bed together. And it's just, they hated us, of course, because we were shining a light on all their activities. Judy was there. Judy knows. Let Judy talk, you know. Put her on.
Judy, do tell us.
Well, it's really funny because one of the things I remember wasn't just finding a printer, but it was finding a typesetter. And we went through typesetters that would, the minute they saw a bad word, would just go, can't do that, can't do that. And my mom ended up being the typesetter for quite a while. So she would sit up late at night and we'd come, Dennis would bring the copy over at like midnight or something. And my mom would be there just typing away. She loved that. That was her favorite job ever. So it was just so funny because it was like, she didn't mind at all. But boy, yeah, we had trouble with things like that, like typesetters. There were all those funny little things that you kind of realize nobody wanted to touch you. Like it was just, yeah. And all those bombings and all those, I mean, you know, and KPFT got bombed off the air a few times, and you know, the Klan would come by and they'd shoot a crossbow through, you know, the front door, or and when they would come and bomb or do whatever, there was always a police car sitting a couple blocks down the street. They were just there watching.
No, they drove them to the site.
I think so, Mitch. I do believe it was. Yeah, it was quite a unique time in Houston, because that was not the Houston I grew up in at all.
Oh,
This is sort of a side. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it was so wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I got pregnant with Kelly, and Kelly was the child of the revolution on the front page. Child of the revolution. Dennis and I were there. I was sitting in a rocking chair, and Dennis was standing above me, like, you know, posed for a, you know, like a formal thing. And then in the background was a big yippee poster with a big marijuana leaf on it. So, yeah. So
I have a good story about that particular cover. Kelly was on the cover with Dennis and Judy.
Yeah.
The child of the revolution was born. And I was actually lived in Austin at that particular time. And I was selling the newspaper, Space City, in front of the UT football game. There was, you know, thousands of people walking by. And who happened to walk by when I was selling the Space City but John Conley. John Conley. And so I tried to sell him. I said, would you like to buy a Space City? You know, I just put it right in his face. And so I knew who he was. And, you know, he was the governor of Texas. So he just kind of blew me off and just walked by. But I always remember that. And John Conley turned me down when I was trying to sell that Space
Kelly's picture.
Kelly's photo on the cover. There's Kelly right now. There's Kelly now.
So let me I know people, one thing I wanted to say about the book is that we did it differently than Celebrating the Rag, which was kind of chronological. We took themes and did different themes. And I just want to say one thing. I mean, I took on women's liberation, Space City and women's liberation first, because Victoria and Judy wrote 2 articles in issue 2 and issue 3. And I was really struck by the fact that there was a lot of gender parity in the paper from the very get-go in 1969. And the paper didn't fall apart over, women's liberation. In fact, it had some great women writers doing lots of different kinds of coverage, not just women's issues. And so I ended up with, kind of like, how was that coverage? How was the coverage of the GI resistance movement? Hey.
I will say, Alice, the organization of the book is great. It really, and it does show the breadth of the coverage and the journalism. So I really commend you on that. It jumps out at you immediately.
Yeah, I think we wrote contemporary essays, and of course we're using the original copy, and you realize not too long in that Chicano movement, that's not currently in the lexicon, but things like that. I mean, but we used the original articles and then had contemporary essays. So I just want to make sure that Cam and Thorne and Sherwood talk about some of the sections that they wrote and why they wrote them, and too, okay? And Thorne, you did the intro on the Klan.
Well, I wrote an introduction to the book, and I also basically constructed the entire section about the Ku Klux Klan. We've talked about that a little bit, but it was a pretty remarkable thing. And when I've more recently written about, in fact, I wrote that thing for the Chronicle, talking about the Klan and talking about the tying together, looking at what was happening then and looking at what happened now and looking at parallels between the two times, all of the incredible division that was happening then, especially around the war in Vietnam and in politics. And then we look at it now, and it's just, we've got one political party that is into fear mongering, and the other that doesn't have a lot of a backbone. And but it's certainly a difference between the two. But the Klan was a pretty remarkable thing, and I don't think other papers around the country had experiences with repression. A lot of it from the police. The Dallas Notes in Dallas had the police just came in and tore their place apart and threw stuff out into the street and whatever. But in Houston, it was like the Klan worked with the police, and it became famous for the fact that there was so much Klan membership in the police. And a lot of people don't know that whole part of the story. And there ended up being some investigative reporting that actually that talked about that. So we had an infiltrator, Mike Lowe, came to the office. He was this kind of little skinny kid, and with this deep East Texas accent, and he was a carpenter. And it was not clear what he had in common with us. He didn't seem to have any politics. So it very quickly became obvious that there was something out of order here. And so he came, he hung around. He finally, we were onto him, and he freaked out, and this wonderful scene happened where I'd say wonderful. Some of our people went to a Ku Klux Klan rally and saw him. I saw him there in his full regalia. And then the next time he came around the Space City office, tell me, Cam, if I'm getting this in the right order or whatever. But he came to the Space City office, and Cam and Dennis chased him down the street, caught him, put him in a neck hold, or whatever you call it, and Sue took a picture, and we still have that picture, and it was in the paper. In fact, it's wonderful. And he started off in one direction and never came back.
Whatever happened to that guy?
And then just a few years ago, I saw him in the news, and he was head of the Klan in Denton or somewhere. So he's still at it.
I thought you were going to say it was in the Texas legislature.
Head of FBI.
They try to keep their Klan involvement down low, but
Okay. Yeah, I want to make sure Sherwood and Cam talk about sections they worked on. So,
Another one of the untold stories that that the paper published was a series laying bare the city's power structure, and that's one that I did an intro for the book, and we reprinted a few of the I think of the best of those power structure articles, some of which were quite long. It was a lot of gray, but I think they were useful in an interesting way. The paper became known for these exposés of the city's wealthy families and their ties to a web of mega corporations and banks and media and universities and private foundations. And we did that reporting on the power structures so communities would be able to understand the elites that they were trying to fight against and the politicians that the elites supported, and to help grassroots groups organize, for example, against the racist urban renewal that was decimating Black and brown communities in Houston, or the racist police violence that was really rampant in the early 70s. We chose Rice and University of Houston as two early targets of this kind of work, because students there were already moving against their administrations and their trustees' involvement with the financial elites and their professors' involvement with military research. The Rice expose in particular was researched by student activists and as well as Space City staff, and it led to a fight for abolishing campus military research and transparency for university financial records. The book also includes the first unveiling of the Jesse Jones Empire and his Houston Endowment, which was a foundation that was called the largest single economic force or corporate force in Houston at the time, and it's still either the second or third largest foundation in the city today. And this was published in the Space City issue with one of Carrie's most brilliant covers, I think, with it showed Jesse Jones playing Monopoly with the city. And we also did in-depth stories on Brown and Root, General Electric, and especially on Houston's big corporate media, just because of its its power in the city.
So I know, I mean, I think we want to open this up maybe in 10 minutes. So I want to just say, Cam, you did a whole lot of work on the Mexican American Youth Organization, and I think we really brought out that. And we also, of course, brought out the murder of Carl Hampton, in which that happened just a week after an interview in Space City with Carl Hampton, and he was shot by Houston police in an assassination that's very much like what happened to Fred Hampton in Chicago. Well, it was Fred Hampton was shot while sleeping, but I mean, still, it was an effort to take out the Black liberation leadership. And then Sherwood, I think you wrote two pieces, I mean, on the alternative culture that grew up around Space City and was kind of fostered by Space City, and also on labor. And I think that those are differences from the RAG in Austin. I mean, this was a big city, had a big industrial workforce, it was just a really different kind of setting that this paper was in. So Sherwood, you want to say some words about the things you wrote about?
Well, one thing that was stated in the very first issue of Space City was that the newspaper had as a goal not just presenting news, but also building a community. getting the disparate people together that were working against the war or to support various communities, things of that nature, providing ways for them to communicate with their communities and with other communities. And the newspaper had in those few short years had an amazing impact on the sort of alternative community in Houston. And a lot of organizations either began or were strongly supported by Space City. The food co-ops and Inlet Drug Crisis Center and a job co-op and a communications center and a day, keeping in mind this was before any computers, before any cell phones, and so not too far beyond telegraphs, I don't think. It was so long ago, so it was really hard for people to communicate. But Space City had articles not only about what was going on in the Black, brown, gay communities, women's activities, but articles written by people who were actively doing those things, articles written by members of the welfare rights organizations and all those other groups. People in those communities then could read Space City and see that there were articles written by people that they knew and trusted in the paper, and that helped give the paper more legitimacy and more power to help develop the community. And the same was certainly true in cultural ways also. And John Lomax said a while ago that he didn't have any credentials at the time. None of us really had any credentials. And it's just amazing what we were able to do without having any credentials at the time. And I just think of the music venue of our own that sort of began because because Dennis Fitzgerald wrote a long piece about a sort of a semi-riot that had occurred at a music concert where the prices were very high and the tickets were still sold out. And so in that article, he criticized the organizer of the concert and who happened to be a reader of Space City. And he wrote us back and we published his letters, and Dennis and he and various other people in the community started communicating with each other. And the guy had an old venue. The cat had been the Catacombs, but it was empty at the time. He was still having to pay rent on it because he had a long-term lease. And so we ended up developing this nonprofit community-run music venue that was a very unique space. Because it was nonprofit, it also served as a place where community organizations could meet and amateur musicians could get together and practice and learn from each other, all those kinds of things. And so Space City had an amazing impact on developing a community in a city that didn't have one, as opposed to, let's say, Austin, that already had a large community of people that saw each other at different events. In Houston, people were doing things. There were a lot of good people there, but they were largely scattered and having trouble getting together. And over those few years, something that was an integrated kind of a community was able to form.
So y'all, I know, I think Cam, do you have to leave fairly soon or not?
No, I'll be here. Yeah.
Okay. How do people feel? I was gonna kind of turn this. Okay, let's talk just a little bit about how the book happened, and And I'm going to say that the first thing was that we didn't have a collection of the paper, and Dennis Fitzgerald, who was no longer with us, did have a collection, and Sherwood did, and we put it together and we had it scanned, and then we could work with digital images. And if we hadn't had all that as a foundation, we kind of wouldn't have been able to do the book. But and then we commented on the kind of structure, the themes that we took on, and you know, the book grew and grew into 376 pages. It's ginormous. And so anybody want to talk about just the process that we went through? It was sort of like laying out Space City, I think, except in the computer age. It was kind of crazy.
Yeah. It was quite a gig. I mean, we spent how long? 2 years? More than 2 years.
Yeah, about 2 years it took to.
A couple of years on it.
From imagining it to getting it done.
Yeah, and it was one of the reasons there are over 100 articles that appeared in the original Space City, and then there's a number of essays, contemporary essays that were written now. Looking back at it and at the historical importance of the paper and in relation to the times then and to the times now. And there's so much art, there's just an incredible amount of artwork in it. That's just very, very great. And all of that, all of the different kinds of jobs that were involved in making that happen. Carlos Lowry, who's is here. He's right behind Carrie. He's hiding behind Carrie. He designed it, and I think did just an incredible job on it. But there were so many different kinds of tasks in putting it together, and we did things like we didn't change the language in the older pieces, in the pieces that appeared in the paper. You know, we didn't make stuff politically correct. We wanted, although we were pretty politically correct then, but we wanted to leave it. You know, I mean, we fixed some, you know, typos and that kind of thing. We wanted to leave those articles pretty much as they were, and then there's a whole different standard for the stuff that we wrote afterwards. Incredible amount of copy editing involved and proofreading involved in that book, because you had so many different kinds of things, so much different kind of material that you had to deal with. So, I mean, it was an incredible challenge, but it was incredibly rewarding.
It was a labor of love, and I will say, because I am quite aware of it, that what Carlos does to take a black and white image that's really on tan paper and make it like a pop out is pretty phenomenal. And we are very fortunate. We were with Celebrating the Rag, and there are all these University of Texas students. Can we get that image? Can we get that image? And I bet that's going to happen with this as well, because the images have been, I mean, we've you know, you can get them one way by just a scan, but you know, when you want them to really look good in a book, you have to do a lot of work on them. So
one thing that really impressed me while working on the book and reading all those old articles was how relevant they still are to today's issues. How timely they still are. Certainly when in all the power structure research, a lot of the names have changed of people, but the structures and the organizations are often still relatively unchanged. The same thing for, let's say, John Lomax's things that he wrote that long ago are still, you know, would be great just to read today. And Carrie's artwork done in that style that originated in the 60s and 70s, but still is you know, beautiful to look at and very relevant today as well. And we have a slideshow we can show you with some of that art.
Yeah, let's try and do that. And then let's bring in other people that, you know, are familiar with the book and want to talk about how it, you know, how it is in compared to other newspapers, or what they think the historical impact is, because we got some historians here.
Alice, Alice,
I'm sure.
could I answer one of the questions in the chat that just popped up?
Yeah,
And this
sure.
is one from Deborah Danberg. And she asks, how did Space City connect with very friendly landlord, Professor Yeager, who charged almost nothing? This was for the office on Wichita Street. And it is a funny story, because he was either the brother or the cousin maybe of a guy who was a poker partner of my dad in Houston. And he was also, Francis Yeager was also, he taught in the business school. I think he taught finance, but he was a progressive Dem, and he hosted what I think might have been the only or one of the few house parties for Space City right before we launched the paper. So he was a great support for us.
So he put his money on Space City. You know,
And he also wrote a story. He also wrote a story that it was in Space City about the stock market.
Right.
At one point.
And he never foreclosed on us when we didn't pay the
No.
rent. So that's most important.
Okay, Sherwood, do you want to try and take us to the slideshow?
Okay,
Okay. And, we vanished. Yay.
Ta-da, there he is.
Ta-da.
okay. Do you see the slideshow?
I do. Next,
Take it away, Alice.
next. Slide. Take it away. I have nothing to say about that slide. But this is
wow.
the 1970 cover after Carl Hampton was murdered.
Mhm.
Next, this is one of Bill Nairn's, okay. This is the Freak Brothers. You know, there were appeared periodically on the pages. Now is on, what is it, Tubu? There's now a TV show.
We tried.
This is
Not good.
This is Carrie's last cartoon, and it's Why So Glum? Anyway, here's his first cover. The God, I want to say, it's not Zapata. I'm sorry.
Pancho Villa.
Your eyes coming
Villa.
from.
Again, so we meet again. Anyway, I love that cartoon. It appears at the end of the book.
And at the very beginning, that was the first cover.
But yeah, Pancho Villa's on the cover, but this
Pancho Villa.
cartoon has him again.
Let's see, he comes in right there.
Yeah, and can you get well, New Journalism Project, that's who we are. I mean, that's who published the book. That's a Jim Franklin armadillo typing. It's pretty funny. And Sherwood, you want to move it to the next slide? I don't know. Yeah, that's the stacked logos of the first 12 issues.
Here, I'll go back. That's what I was trying to get to.
Okay, this is the book launch information, the Austin launch tomorrow, December 8th, and then the Houston launch Saturday, December 11th. So that information you can find on the ragblog.com in the Space City menu. And it says to be announced, but we can now say that Cactus Music 2110 Portsmouth will have the books. They may have them as we speak. Okay, and I think we missed a couple at the beginning, and they were Carrie's artwork.
There's one.
Okay, that's of course, yes. And there's another one that's Pick It Up, Louie. Yeah, Pick It Up, Louie.
That's Louis Welch. That was the mayor of Houston.
Oh, yeah, the garbage strikes.
Yeah.
They couldn't find a place to dump all the garbage.
Those people on that drawing are somebody. They're somebody. I don't know who they are, but
They're Mayo. They're Mayo.
Mayo.
Yeah, it's the Mexican.
know?
That's Yolanda,
Oh my God, that's
Yolanda
Yolanda.
Birdwell, that's Gregorio Salazar,
Oh, that's who it
Yeah.
is.
Alex Rodriguez.
Oh, okay.
Alex Rodriguez.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. And I think that may get most of the slides, right? Go back to Carl Hampton.
Oh, that's the one we
Bill
skipped over.
Narum.
That's Narum.
That's Bill Narum's artwork.
Look how good he is.
Yeah, he's good. He's good.
He's very good.
He's very good. Liberty Hall.
He did
Okay.
ZZ Top.
yeah.
He did all of ZZ Top's work for one thing, but he did all kinds of stuff. He started Space City Video. He was in radio. He was mural. He just did an amazing. He was a Renaissance man when it came to
And
media and art.
one of the fun things in the book is it's got a lot of ads, that are from all the little Liberty Hall and many, many more places. And so anything, okay, back to Furry Freak Brothers, okay, do y'all want to open this up and let people, there we are, Space City.
Yeah.
Space City News, we didn't tell that story, but the original title of the paper got nixed because of what was it?
A
NASA.
UFO newsletter. A UFO newsletter already had the name
Right.
and threatened to sue us.
And that's why it became Space City.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody. Thank you, Sherwood. So let's, I think people can chime in on, if you will, and I may call on people. Abe Peck, you want to say anything about how, since you wrote the book on underground newspapers, or one of them?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, it's really interesting hearing about this paper. The underground, so just so people know, I was the editor of Chicago Seed, and I wrote a book called Uncovering the 60s, The Life and Times of the Underground Press, and which got me tenure, which was pretty interesting. But it's interesting because listening to this, it's kind of like, they're like snowflakes and fingerprints. They're alike, but they're different, and the Seed was much more of a hippie paper originally, then became more political. The thing that, to me, the thing that really distinguished Space City was it was kind of centered. It was had the Freak Brothers, but it also had what someone referred to, I think it was Martin, the power structure research. And I thought we didn't do that. What we had was something similar to what was mentioned, which was after Mayor Daley, Mayor Daley 1, as we called him in Chicago, said, what trees do they plant? We actually responded very seriously to that and said, we have to really put together a whole bunch of alternative institutions. And the paper really rallied around, there were hundreds of these things, from GI, coffee shops, to free clothes, to the underground abortion service, Jane, and it was, so that became a rallying point for us. We too had our printer boycotted. That seemed to be, and that seemed to be part of it. That these poor progressive people or First Amendment people that supported us would get torched. I think in terms of the book, I really liked the balance between the kind of retrospective pieces and the I don't want to call them artifacts because that would date us all. We'd all be in the grave. But and the contemporary pieces. And I thought that the editors deserve a shout out for that. I thought it balanced quite well. Interesting enough, I'm in the blurb business these days. I'm blurbing a book that's a collection of flyers that a guy just sent me about a week ago. And we were the sophisticated media compared to those. It's kind of funny. Just all the merry, I don't want to dominate this thing, but all the merry adventures, of course. At one point we solicited some of the speed freaks in the community to come in because we had to stipple the negatives, and they were very good at that. That would, keep them off the streets and give them something to do, and there were like 1,000 stories like that. Someone mentioned the magic number, $50 a week. That was big money. And I think it was also amazing that we could live on that, probably a little underground economy stuff to supplement it. But it was really, we have between youth fair on the plains and, AmVets for clothes and, and things like that, and communal living, of course, and someone mentioned music. I went on to be work at Rolling Stone and places like that, and I wrote for Cream also, and it was really interesting. I mean, it was really a space, where the daily papers were pretty lame on that. When the Rolling Stones showed up in Chicago, the Chicago Tribune interviewed them on the street. In front of it was them, the Tribune Tower, and they brought a barber with them. That was their statement on the Stones' music, and that created a giant tunnel for us. And some of our coverage was oh wow stuff, but some of it was better, and both in terms of the music coverage and trying to fit the music into the revolution. I think, I'll just say one more thing about the music coverage. I lived on the vinyl standard. And Alice, when we worked at the Rat, it was like, you'd get up in the morning being like 11 o'clock, and then you go to a record company lunch. Then you'd get your free albums, which later on in Chicago, there's a friendly record store that I would trade for albums or sell them, and the ones I didn't want. And then, you do whatever writing you were doing, and then you go to, to an event, a concert, and there was food, So that was the vinyl standard. And it was so, the final remark I'll make about, someone talked about, I think Sherwood, the persistence of the issues. And that's both a curse and a blessing. Some of the issues we thought were wins and we were done with, and they're back. I was just editing a piece on environmentalism, and that's a continuing struggle, which is obviously even more exacerbated now. Now there's even more evidence, than there was then. So I guess we can't go I think the motto is we can't go graciously into the night. We have to keep on keeping on.
Yeah, I think that for myself, I will say that I feel, the clock's running out. We're in the third act, whatever you want to call it. If we don't write our history, it either won't be written or will be written by people who
haven't got a clue.
That's right. Well, it's a long time. I mean, what do we really know about the 20s when we were in school, and
right.
It's just a long time. We did by the way, just one thing, we didn't do a book about the Seed. Someone's actually doing one now who wasn't there, but and God bless, but we had a reunion a few years ago, and we had the Seed people and the Rising Up Angry people. Rising Up Angry was the more political paper in Chicago, tried to organize white working class kids, and kind of an SDS offshoot. And it was really a rollicking good time, but we just don't have that artifact. Artifact's a bad word. We don't have this wonderful book that you guys have conspired, if I dare use that word, to put out. So thank you. It was a joy to look at.
What about Jonah? Jonah may have.
Jonah?
Alice? Jonah Raskin?
Yes.
You want to say anything, Jonah, about our brilliance?
Jonah did a wonderful review of our book.
Thank you. Well, so I would say that you all have a lot to be proud of. And it's good to celebrate Space City. You might have, I don't know for a fact, but you might have benefited from the fact that Space City was started after underground newspapers had been around for a while, and you knew kind of what to avoid and what to steer clear of. So, I mean, there were some underground newspapers that had ads that were at the back. They had all these sexist ads, like the Berkeley Barb had that, and so there was a kind of upheaval in that paper that led to the creation of the Tribe. I believe you didn't have ads for massage parlors and all that. You were smart enough to steer clear of that.
Well, there were women involved, very much involved, and a feminist. I mean, it was partly, yes, 1969, so that was in the air, but
yes,
it was a choice that Space City made as well all the time. So I just want to give a shout out to the original collective that way, and to Victoria Smith, who's not with us, and to Sue Sue Duncan, who isn't with us anymore, but everybody, I mean, all of the collective made that decision. And I think we benefited, I think we benefited from the Great Speckled Bird from the Atlanta paper, because I had not known, I mean, like, oh, wow, you can scan and digitize your paper. They started, as far as I know, that was the first example. And I remember for the rag going, oh my God, we can digitize the paper. And we did, you know, we chased that down. And then we did with this, and it's on the Internet Archive. So
Well, one of our revenue streams, you may remember, was when Bell and Howell decided to be the archivist of all the underground papers. And we'd send them a paper and they'd actually send us money for them, you know, and so somewhere in the archives there are certain schools that have better archives than others. Amherst always had a great one. There are a couple of others, and there's some site that I can't remember what it is now, that is a reference to the archives.
Yeah, some of the stories that I heard tonight really stood out for me. The one about these, most of you are new names to me. The woman whose mother did the typesetting.
That's great.
And then also the fact that there's a Black publication did the printing. Maybe they're in the book and I just missed those things, but those are very telling. Those details are really telling. I really appreciated hearing them.
We should put something about Judy's mother in the second edition of the book. I think.
Yes.
Yes.
I'd just like to say something about the ads, which was that the collective was 6 people and 3 of us were women. And there was no way any of us would ever have even considered that. And there were 3 really strong women as well as 3 really strong men. So
I don't think any of us would have considered that either.
Well, but it really was what Alice mentioned earlier, which is that there really was a gender parity on that paper, more so than any other organization I was involved in during that time period. And it worked really well.
So in that time period, I was around people who used to say all space to the space. I don't know if people heard that in Houston or Austin. No. I was in New York. People said that in New York.
Well, it didn't refer to Space City, apparently.
No.
One person who's here tonight, one of our attendees is Tony Grant, who is a musician and a songwriter. But at that time, he was one of our hero salespeople, and I think supported himself by selling the paper. And there was a picture of him, I think it was on one of the covers of Space City, a picture of him selling it. Now, Tony, is your microphone working? Are you there?
He's muted. Nope.
No, he's not muted, but
No, he's gotta be
I'm not
there.
sure if his microphone is picking it up. Anyway, there were people who supported themselves largely by just selling the paper. And as Carrie said earlier, you know, if you could make $50 a week, you could support yourself at that time, especially if you lived in a commune or one of these big old houses where you could just have one room for pennies practically, or half a room, whatever to stay in.
Although I must say, we fronted papers to the people who were the street sellers, the army that we had, who would leave their driver's licenses as collateral. And at one point we counted, and we had 18 states worth of driver's licenses that were unredeemed. You know, people took the money and ran. You know?
I was going to mention that in at the very back of Exploring Space City of the book, we have a staff box, a composite staff box of everybody who worked on the paper during the whole run. It was a couple hundred people, and it was a pretty impressive group. And that didn't even count the Tony Grants, and the people who were selling it on the street, because their names weren't on the staff box. So that's it.
Yeah, it appeared in the last issue of the paper, that ginormous staff box. Yeah.
Right. And then we put it in the book.
Yeah.
Our pay was $25 a week. That was our salary from Space City.
What?
Wow.
You got paid?
Yeah,
Nobody told Carrie.
that was it. Well, I don't know, Carrie, you made more than we did. Well, because two of us made it 50, but you know, pretty.
You and I got to spend some time proofreading. And that was really a treat. I mean, the writing in Space City was so clear and so direct. And, you know, I proofread the section about the murder of Carl Hampton. And I remember how terrifying that week was. And the ability of the Space City staff to put together a lucid, angry, totally clear account of actually what happened. And that was not easy. It was pretty, I remember really appreciating reading it when it came out and looking at it 50 years later, I'm amazed. I mean, how did you get up in the morning after police invasion and write about it and make sense? Wow, thank you. And thank you for, putting it together in the paper, in the book, because sad to say, that's not a story that's ended yet.
Yeah, I think there are so many echoes to what hasn't ended yet when you look at vigilantes and police violence, and then of course the fight at that time for abortion access. And I mean, it's like it's like, okay, I guess we none of these fights are over. And it's it's interesting to see it historically, and see, and then reflect on how it is today. And I think that's a powerful part of the book, just the fact that we put that history out there again, and the Chronicle picked right up on it in terms of the Klan and other parts of it. So
Alice, I'd be interested to hear some of the efforts and some of the plans you have for marketing and spreading the book out and getting the book sold.
I think we're relying upon total volunteer marketing, and we've had,
Let's put a good buy.
so we're on a the Lulu indie platform, and I just when we got the Chronicle coverage, when we got the Houston Press, I noticed those sales were popping up. And anybody who's an academic here, any way we can get a review of this into a library journal or into a history, American history type, academic professional groups, that would really help us. So
what about like the Ransom Center and is that still what it's called, at UT, their archive?
In Austin, yeah.
Well, our association is more with the Briscoe Center for American History than it is with the Ransom Center. But yeah, they've been supportive and interested. And
where is the Briscoe Center?
The Briscoe Center used to be the Barker Center. It's right near the LBJ Library.
Oh, okay.
It's a stone's throw from it.
It's a what?
A stone's throw.
A stone's throw.
That's what I always say at the AFL-CIO in Austin. It's just a
So
stone.
get stoned and we'll throw you.
A stone
Or as we used to
from
call
the
it,
from the
throw.
governor's mansion. But we are what we are. We're small, trying to market the book, as best we can. And kudos to Thorne for following up with the Chronicle and getting that.
Yeah.
Kudos to everybody for the KPFT and the Reg Radio, and to Jonah for writing reviews and all of that. That's how we're gonna get it out there. And let me just say, which I say this all the time about Houston. Houston, or Harris County, has a larger population than 28 states. So it's a huge, ginormous potential market, just Houston, in terms of their interest. That's what I always say. And then I think about Wyoming. with its 500,000 people.
And under the new Texas redistricting plan, it gets one representative, right?
Yeah.
That's if you're good, right?
Yeah,
You know, Alice, have you tried like hooking up? There are a lot of 60s courses at universities now. I just read a review on the Northwestern, you know, I taught at Northwestern for many years. On the Northwestern side, a guy did a book called Shattered about the American consensus of the 50s being shattered by the 60s. There are tons of these courses that are very popular, and I'm just wondering if that would be a way for you, you know, I know you're not, don't have infinite capacity for this, but to reach out, you know, to these particular, rather than just dumping something at the university bookstore, to reach out to particular people.
so John Moretta, who wrote for this and he wrote an essay in the book, is that, you know, we're certainly trying to work with them in the University of Houston. Yeah, we've had some good luck with celebrating the rag. We've got history classes that
There you go.
3 years ago began to use it as a reference, and you know, classes would purchase it, and then, you know, and then, you know, do a bunch of oral histories off of the context they get or the information they get. So yeah, I think it's got legs that way, but we don't exactly have a marketing staff. We just have
One of the former music editors at the Austin Chronicle is teaching, now he's full-time over at UT, and he said that his boss has had him put together something for that type of course. He spoke at the Texas Book Festival specifically about the music, and when we were talking, I had to notarize some papers for him here at the Chronicle, and I think that we have a real good chance of having the RAG book and Space City picked up by one of their courses, and what you're talking about, American, you know, American history, contemporary American history.
music
And-
history. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also a concept out here in California where I live, you know, called the long 60s, which touches on some of the things we've been talking about, the same issues going on, and that the 60s became, you know, the techno revolution in Silicon Valley was in part inspired by the 60s and things like that. And that's another place where they might be able to hook into it. You know, that the issues that you're engaging in the book, you know, do have did plant seeds, no pun intended, you know, that sprouted into subsequent you know, subsequent issues. So, and there are courses like that too. There's one at San Francisco State, a couple others.
Well, we may circle back on some of these because right now we're just trying to get the book launched out there, and then, you know, let's face it, COVID has kind of changed the way you can have a gathering. I mean, in a good way because we have Canadians here, but in, you know, but in kind of like a bad way because it's really hard to have like in-person gatherings right now.
Folks
So-
from Chicago and San Francisco are here.
Yeah, I didn't mean to just.
Mitch, where are you?
Not just Canada. We're in
Not
different
just
countries.
Canada, Northern California
Well, that's true.
and Southern California. And Martin, where are you? Martin,
Ann Arbor,
huh?
Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Ann Arbor, yay, let's have a shout out. Okay, and yeah, so Carrie, we've missed out on your humor for a while. Anything you want to say?
Yeah,
just laugh.
where's Gavin Duffy?
Yes.
Kevin Duffy.
I don't know.
He's in New York someplace.
Oh, okay. I'm just kind of,
Yeah.
is Cam Duncan still on here?
I'm here.
Okay, Cam, I just want to say thank you. Actually, I turned 18 and I had to go down to the draft board when I was like
God.
hanging around Space City.
Oh, no.
And my plan, and Cam was a draft dodger, or, you know, he talked to me about the draft, and he kind of, my plan was to go down there as a radical with guns, and I had guns, and I was gonna, put shit all over me, and be all muddy, and he goes, no, that's what they want. So I went into the draft board I played a gay person. I told him I was gay and I could not be drafted. And actually, I had to go see some commanding officer, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, all I know is I got a 4F, which is basically you won the lottery when you get a 4F, because women and children go before you do in case of a war. So I was out of there. And, the draft board had hundreds of guys there. They were taking everybody. They didn't care what they were, but me, I got 4F because I played like I was a gay guy. And
the details, Terry?
Yeah,
the details.
I never have actually tried it, but anyway.
I think part of it was your gay apparel too.
Yes. How did you dress? Your details. We want the details.
Cam Duncan actually, advised me. He says, well, if you get to be 4F, you probably can't get a government job, which means you can't ever be a postman. So I was like, that was my goal in life, to be a postman. So I think I'm still 4F. So I don't know what they even have anymore. So anyway,
you took the right path. You took the right path. You did it.
I'd like to say how excited I am to see Judy and Kelly. Of course, I haven't seen Kelly since she was a baby. So turned into a real human being. And Judy, of course, one of the original 6 members of the collective. I haven't seen you in a long time. I just want to say what an inspiration you were, and how much I learned from you. And thank you for putting up with what a weird guy I was. And still am.
Sherwood, we were all weird. Do you not remember?
Yeah, but Sherwood actually lived at the Space City house.
I know.
That was scary. That was weird.
That was weird. Yeah. It was not a nice place to live.
No,
Lots of roaches.
It was a lot better than living in Pasadena.
Lots of roaches.
Lots of roaches. Big ones.
Don't go in the kitchen, whatever you do.
No.
Turn the lights on when you do.
Alice Thorne, what did y'all find some place for the original papers?
Was this to me?
Yeah, you were Alice.
Oh, but what did you say?
Did you find something to do with the original papers?
We've housed the collection for posterity at the Briscoe Center for American History. It will be forever accessible. And I just want to say one thing too. I think Abe mentioned, some people have archives. Yeah, they got the papers. They're falling apart, and they got them, wherever they got them. But we have them on the Internet Archive.
Right.
And 10,000 people have visited them, and people, I'm always fascinated. I go and I look, and it's like, Ireland, Argentina, China, I'm like, who the heck is looking at Space City? But it's like, it's really kind of fascinating, because it makes at 24 hours a day, you can go and look at any issue of that paper. And of course, that is the beauty of the new technology, which we are, dragging ourselves into by virtue of being as old as we are.
Old?
They aren't always competent in it. I mean, it has there are a lot of pluses. Yeah.
Well, a couple of years ago, I went to the University of Brighton to speak about the underground press. No money, but a free trip. And it was really interesting. I was following up on your point about it was a bunch of young professors from all over England. What were they interested in? And it was ecology. It was gender. It was less the kind of what you might call the hard politics than the kind of how we lived. It was the ethos more than the more than the hard politics. And it was just, and they were all writing like I read a couple of them. They were quite fascinating papers about, about these topics. So it's just, you never know what's going to stick, I guess is the lesson.
I just finished reading Alice Embry's memoirs called Voice Lessons that was published earlier this year. And well, the detail in it is amazing. I don't know how she could possibly remember so much, but just reading about all of those things that, not that she did, but all those things that were happening, all of those decades that with different people working together to try to end wars and end racism and diminish sexism, et cetera, et cetera. It's just incredible to read that and to see all those things that that Alice, that a lot of other people, and of course a lot of us here did all those years. Oh, look, there's Nancy has a copy of it. It's a beautiful book. I hated to finish it because I didn't want it to end.
Yeah. I would say that for anyone who's worked on this book and who knows how Alice is the glue that holds it all together and knows how she makes lists and knows how she makes spreadsheets and knows how she puts all of this stuff together, should not be surprised that she was already doing that when she was like 10 years old. She always has had these records.
Yes, I became a typist early on, and I like Excel, so I did my own chronology in Excel, and then, I love lists. But the planner.
I wasn't suggesting you loved them. I was suggesting you did.
Thank you, Thorne. I think some of the glue stuff is, a lot of women do kind of invisible work of the glue stuff, and sometimes it's terribly tedious. And but I was also the person who wrangled the cats together and said, oh, here's your deadline. No, you can't do that. We passed the deadline. I think I said that to Cam. And, I think we always knew that the back end was going to be a bear, and there were a lot of intervening things happening, like grandchildren getting born and stuff like that. So, it was like we got it done, folks. We got it done. So
this book would not have happened without Alice. So big kudos. Big kudos.
Yeah. Hey. I'm the only one here that's not the Houston person, right? Somehow got.
Well, Alice, if we ever put out the paper again and I can't find a Speed Freak, you're in.
I don't even take speed. I just like Excel. Okay. But I think
Carlos did a great job too.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think everybody who worked on the book did a great job.
I do too. It's funny. I think I said this to the Houston Press. We worked virtually, and then finally we all got vaccinated, and so Thorne, who was in Austin, could come over and sit with Carlos going, this goes, they would put artwork in and put pull quotes everywhere. That's one of Thorne's favorite things is pull quotes. And then Ryan took it on to proofread it, and then we conned, I don't know how we did this, but Hugh and Sue and Martin and let's see who else is on the call, all proofread it. And so it was like, anyway, it was a collective effort, labor love.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, make a general comment from someone who's a complete outsider from Space City. And I was really happy that Alice asked me to do some proofreading for it. And I think what struck me most about the book is that the issues that were raised were so sophisticated at the time. This is 50 years ago. And I think that the relevance of those issues, the way they were raised and the way in which a movement saw things so holistically and so interconnected, I think is a real lesson for today. Because what I despair a bit about today is I would like to see movements today see things more holistically, see things more connected. And I think that that's what Space City actually does. And it's a really great document that I think could be quite useful as a way to talking to younger people about, look, we weren't perfect. We made mistakes. We were flawed people. We didn't see things like we should have. We didn't, for me, the revolution didn't happen in 1982. And I think that the way in which coalitions were built, the way in which people dealt with each other, the way in which people dealt with contradictions and their own mistakes, I think is a real lesson for today, a lesson to move away from the kind of a purity that we weren't perfect, but we really struggled. I mean, that's what really comes across in the Space City book, is that there really was struggle and people really did dedicate themselves to changing the world.
Thanks, Martin. And thank you for just people randomly I'd communicate with them and then I go, hey, Martin, do you want to proofread a book? I was like, yeah, we had a lot of volunteers helping pull this thing together, but that's how the paper happened too.
Thanks.
I read every word.
Really nice.
Yeah.
Every word.
It's true.
So how many people are going to be in Houston next Saturday?
Who's from Houston?
Can't make it.
No.
Canada won't let her out. Yay.
Yay.
Yay. And Cam is
going to be there. David Ross is going to be there.
Oh,
he says.
Great. Okay. Well,
How about tomorrow night in Austin?
Tomorrow is not at night, but 1 o'clock, Sherwood. You're going to have to get up early. 1 to 3 at Batch, where you can get both kolaches and craft beer. Now, that's not, you can't do that
And
like
copies
a
of the
lot of
book.
places. Yeah, coffee, craft beer, and kolaches. only in,
Very funny.
yeah, very exciting. So, hey,
We're thinking there may be a lot of people in Houston simply because there's been so much publicity. We don't, who knows? Partly that, and partly that there's so many people, more people in Houston who were involved with the paper and around the other, around the people who were involved with the paper and that kind of thing.
yeah, and then the Houston Press and the Houston Chronicle have kind of, I mean, that's great publicity, and it is for the event, It's
One thing I just want to say before is I just want to send a shout out to Thorne's parents, Bart and Maggie Dreyer, because they were really supportive of us from the beginning. And Maggie Dreyer was a big inspiration in my personal life because she had an art gallery and I got to hang around the art gallery and I kind of learned a lot of art stuff. More so than any art school I ever went to. Just hanging around Maggie Dreyer and listening to her talk and they were incredible people, Thorne, and I want to thank you and I want to thank your parents, really, because they really helped me out a lot in my life. Okay.
Well, they helped me out a lot in mine.
Well, I know they
tell
did.
you.
But Maggie Dreyer
For
was a
instance, I
wonderful
wouldn't
person.
be here, but there's that point. But no,
Well,
they
you
were they were
They
wonderful.
also bore the brunt of some of the Klan stuff. I mean, the gallery was graffitied and I mean, your parents your mom stood out there and got a lot of the Klan stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, right. And they shot it. They shot through the front door, and there was a mosaic wall inside the front door, a second wall, and she put and there was a bullet that lodged in it, and she just put a big red circle around it rather than taking it out because she considered it a badge of honor.
She was, yeah.
Well, we were the infamous Dreyer rats. The Klan put out a rat sheet
Yes.
And the rat sheet was, I would like to call it a throwaway in the most real senses. But they called us the infamous dryer rats, devoted an issue to us. And they talked about my father, who wrote these far left articles for the Houston Chronicle. And they said about Little Thorn, they said, and there is a rat if there ever was one. So you guys.
Badge of honor.
That's where the rat stuff started. I have to say, and I had my ears pinned back, so.
Well, y'all, so hopefully we see the Austin people who are on this tomorrow, 1 to 3, and we can have beer and kolaches and coffee and some mix. And then hopefully everything goes marvelously in Houston. I won't be there, but everybody knows about that event. Visit theragblog.com. Look up in that menu bar. You'll see everything we know about what's happening. And we keep adding stuff all the time. Thank you.
Nice to see everyone.
Thanks for including me.
It's great.
Yeah,
Hope
thank
to see
you.
you guys
Thank
in
you.
Houston.
This is
Bye.
wonderful.
Thank you for all coming. Thank you all for coming.
So we're signing off, folks.
Okay.
All right, you guys are the
Bye
best.
bye.
Bye.
Oh, John
Yeah.
Lopez is here. Has he been here?
Yeah, well, he just came on a little bit ago.
Oh, hi, John Lopez.
Hi, John. Okay, do y'all want to just go, hey? I
Good to
mean,
see you, Tony.
Yeah, I'll be down there. Going to fight for Texas.
where will you be?
Be in Austin sometime over the winter, I think. If not, it'll have to be next summer.
Okay, cool.
Before the election cycle goes through.
Oh, yeah, it's coming up. If they'll let us vote this year, I don't know. It's
RB didn't say anything.
who?
RB.
Ryan Bernard did.
Arby's?
No, it's Ryan. I wasn't asked to say anything, so I didn't say a thing.
Please say something. We
Been
shouted.
quiet as a mouse.
Ryan was the one who did the massive proofreading on the book.
Well, even.
Editing on the book, not proofreading, editing.
Right.
Or
And
proofreading.
he succeeded in getting Cactus Music, I think, right? Yay.
What's that? Texas Monthly?
No, well, that too. Cactus Music.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
that's
so
what-
listen, I'm the guy that removed all the extra spaces between the
Damn it.
words.
Ah,
If you had 2 spaces instead of 1, that was me. So, you know, and they
Oh my
paid me
God.
well, let me tell you.
Well.
Thank
we
you.
did Something. Okay.
Okay,
Thank
bye.
you.
And I want to say hello to
Judy
Judy,
and
by the
Kelly,
way,
it's so
Judy
good to
Fitzgerald.
see you. I'm waving the wrong way.
I have not
Hello,
seen
I'm
you since
waving.
1975 at KPFT,
Yes, that's about it.
Mighty 90 News.
I have been in Canada since 1977, so yeah.
Ryan, that's interesting though. Ryan followed me, I guess, as editor of, Ryan was my managing editor when we started the Mighty 90 News and then took over as editor. Isn't that correct?
I think that's what I did.
Yes. And then took it and it soared. It just soared once he took
Yeah, just
control of
like that.
it soared down.
No, it went on for several years, and we had another editor here tonight, Karen Barrett, was on the call.
Karen's still on.
Right. Is Karen still
yeah.
here?
Mhm.
She was an editor of the Mighty
Hi,
90 News
Karen.
after me, and the Mighty 90 News, for those who don't recall, was kind of the follow-up to Space City in a way. We used a lot of the same writers. I know we had John Lomax writing for us, and we had
Mitch Green, who was here tonight, but is no longer,
Mitch
no longer
Green.
with us.
and we had a lot of great people on writing for us, mainly because Thorne knew all the great people.
There you go.
And Thorne was a great guy. He was the guy that started my career too.
He
so,
was,
yeah,
was.
was. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Some
Okay.
All
Y'all,
right.
thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in from Canada and from all the places north of us. And I guess no one is tuning in from south of us, but well, Houston is sort of some. Okay, this has been wonderful.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Okay.
Thank you all.
Good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Hopefully see you at one of these events. Except if you have to come down from Canada, probably not.
Not gonna happen.
Not gonna happen, not now.
Okay, cool.
They can come see
Adios.
us anytime.
Yeah, we can go. They don't let people in from the United States.
Yes, they do.
They do now.
Oh, okay.
They may change their mind again
Yeah.
because it comes, it goes.
Yeah, okay. Well,
Every time we think we might go, we can't, so.
When's a good time to come up there to visit the dispensaries?
Not right now. It snowed
We
yesterday.
got snow
so-
yesterday. You want to wait a little while.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Texas. Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all. See you real soon.
Y'all come
I'll
back there.
come back to you.
Okay. Bye.